there's one thing you should take away from this video, it's that your characters and your plot should not really be two separate things. They need to play off of each other so much to the point where they almost become one singular entity. Hey Fresties, welcome back to Wattpad Wednesdays, and welcome back to the series where I am taking you through every single step of my process for writing a book for Wattpad. This is part 2 of the series, and today we are talking all about how I develop my characters. So if you watched last week's video, then you know that with my process, I usually come up with the plot first and then develop the characters. When I'm developing my characters, typically I start with the main character, and I start by asking myself, what kind of character does this plot need? What kind of person would be most affected by the conflict of my plot? What fatal flaw could they have that would be fixed by the journey that this conflict is going to cause them to go on? This is how I figure out arguably the most important part of my character, which is their fatal flaw / misbelief. As an example, I'll use my own book, May the Best X Win. If you don't want some very vague spoilers, then maybe skip ahead. Basically, one of my main characters, Preston, the plot took him on a journey where he befriended this outcasted girl named Emily. Knowing that this was going to happen in the story, I had to figure out, why does he need to befriend Emily? What is his flaw that gets challenged by befriending an outcasted girl? Through this question and some brainstorming, I figured out that his problem is that he's super popular and he doesn't like the way that his friends act, but he's too scared of being alone to ever challenge them. So if he wants to keep his new friendship with Emily, he has to actually stand up to his friends, otherwise he loses her respect and he loses her as a friend and a potential romantic interest. The next time you watch your favorite movie or read your favorite book, just sit down and ask yourself these questions. What is the character's big flaw? Do they not believe that they deserve love? Do they think that they need to fill someone else's shoes? Do they think that they, have no purpose? They don't have a reason to stay alive? Whatever it may be. And then look at how the conflict and the journey that that conflict creates affects their flaw and forces them into change. Another important part of this process is figuring out what caused your character's misbelief in the first place. Again, using my own book as an example, Preston was not popular at all in his first years of high school and was sort of a loner. He really only had his older brother to talk to, and his older brother did not want to engage with his younger brother while he was at school and hanging out with his own friends. So when Preston joined the wrestling team and was finally able to make friends of his own and got sort of swept up into this popular lifestyle where he was never lonely, it became this crutch for him. It's something that he doesn't ever want to lose. His misbelief is that it's better to just swallow his own beliefs and not stand up for what he believes in, rather than confront his friends and try to make them better people and risk losing them. So that's our main character. But when it comes to side characters, they're equally as important. Here I ask myself a similar question. What kind of people are going to either help or hinder my hero on their path to finding the truth? What kind of characters are going to make it easier or more difficult for my hero to figure out that their misbelief really is a misbelief and change and develop and let go of that fatal flaw that they have? Since my book May the Best X Win doesn't have too many side characters, I'll move on to another example in my own writing in my book, How to Save Your School from Soul-Stealing Demons. The main character, Diego, has 3 friends in that book, and each of them has gone through something that Diego can relate to and is still struggling with. Both Rennie and Diego have overbearing parents who try to change their child into the picture-perfect child that they wish that they had. Diego, on one hand, is trying his best to fit into that mold, while Rennie has overcome this and learned that either her parents are going to love her for who she is, or they're not. And she's just going to be herself, and she can't help it if they don't like her. Both Ambrose and Diego have lost a sibling, and while Diego is still struggling to cope with this loss and accept that he has his own life and he needs to stop trying to fill his brother's shoes, Ambrose has successfully coped with his brother's death and is still working through the trauma that comes from that, but he's using it to better himself and figure out what he himself really desires in life. Lastly, Watts and Diego both have a previous hobby that they're just not so fond of anymore, even though they were pretty good at it. While Watts has successfully let this old hobby go and just accepted that it's not a part of who he is anymore, Diego, to try to please the people in his life, is still trying to force himself into that hobby and is ignoring the things that he would rather be doing. So through his friends, my hero Diego is able to learn that he he can overcome the struggles that he's having. Other people have gone through the same or similar things that he's going through, and they've come out the other side and seem to be stronger people because of it. But if you want the opposite effect and you want your character to actually be hindered on their journey, and you want things to be a lot tougher for them, then you just do the opposite. You write a side character whose experiences reaffirm the misbelief that your character has. So, for example, if I wanted Diego to really feel like he absolutely should try to conform to what his parents want him to be, instead of writing Rennie as a girl who has overcome her parents' desires and just decided to be herself, I would have written her as someone who completely put herself into that box that her parents wanted and has excelled because of it. You know, her parents love her now, they give her all the attention that she wants, they really care about her, and maybe she's even a happier person than she was before. If Diego saw somebody like that instead of like the actual Rennie, he definitely would have had a lot more struggles in overcoming the belief that he needed to fill the shoes that his parents created for him. So in the previous video, I talked about how at this point my characters were very flat, just basic terms and simple adjectives. At this point, it's time to take that a little bit farther, or a lot farther, and develop them into actual people, not just caricatures. It's important to note that each character should have a purpose. They shouldn't just be there to be there. They should play an important part in either the external plot or your character's growth. For main characters and side characters alike, it's important to develop some backstories for them, really create a life for them, and just explore who they are as a person and how they became that way. Step 1 is figuring out what flaw they either have or have overcome already, and step 2 is figuring out where did that start to begin with. Using Diego as an example again, the flaw and the misbelief he has is that he needs to fill the shoes that his parents are creating for him, but how it started in the first place is that his parents put all these expectations on him because his older brother, who was previously filling and living up to these expectations, passed away. So Diego now believes that he has to live up to everything that his brother was accomplishing before his death. His parents were already pretty overbearing before this, but now that this has happened, it is just on another level. That is the backstory that creates the main internal conflict. Going back to my other story, May the Best Ex Win, the outcast that Preston befriends, Emily, it's one thing to just say, oh, she's an outcast. But it's another thing, and it makes her seem like more of an actual human being, to develop a backstory as to why she became that way. Why is she so outcasted? Is she just shy, or does she have some underlying issues that may cause her to push people away? Again, vague spoilers here, but we find out that Emily not only is tired of befriending people only to have them eventually leave her, but that she also doesn't believe that she's a good person or that she deserves friends because of something sort of violent that she did in her past. I don't know why I said sorta. It wasn't sort of violent. It was very violent. It's important to note that these big, almost philosophical questions are not the only important part of developing your characters. There's a lot of little things that also go into it that are really going to help bring your writing to the next level and again, make this character feel like an actual human being. A lot of people might refer to things like this as character quirks. Things like phrases that your character might say a lot, references they might make, like in How to Save Your School from Soul-Stealing Demons, I made Rennie a big horror movie fan, so she's constantly referencing the movies that she likes. Well, not constantly. It's sort of subtle, but see, that's the thing. Just little bits and pieces that come together to form a human being. I like horror movies too, but I don't go around talking about them every day all the time, comparing everything to a horror movie. But if somebody knows me, then they probably will pick up on that I'm making a lot of movie references over the course of, a year or whatever. But at the same time, if you do really want to go super, super exaggerated and you do almost want to turn this character into a caricature, I know some people take issue with that, but I think it can be a lot of fun to make a character who is really into one thing or really does something over and over again. It can create a very memorable character even if they don't have the deepest backstory or flaw or whatever. I think obviously this works a lot better for side characters because you don't want to have a main character that's just, a bunch of quirky personality traits thrown together. But a side character who maybe wears the same hat to school every day, maybe they have a little pet mouse that they take with them everywhere that they go, or maybe they are constantly referencing Shakespeare all the time and you just can't get them to stop. Maybe they're the comedic relief character and they just take things a little too far sometimes. beep beep Richie. Whatever it is, these quirks can either be played down and just integrated into the character like a normal person, or they can be really played up and just played as more of a goof and not something that's super serious. If you want to get really deeper into your characters, whether that's the main character or a side character, something I like to do is, like I said last time, make mood boards. And again, also like I said last time, playlists can really help you sort of delve more into the brain of a character that you're developing. You can do it either based on the type of music that you think they would listen to, or you can go purely lyric-based and feeling-based and just put songs together that really make you think of that character. Whether or not they would actually listen to them is irrelevant. Either way that you choose to do this, I think it can be super fun and super helpful. And last but not least, something that I don't do all the time, but that I think can really help if you're exploring a character and just trying to figure them out, you know, maybe you just don't know them as well as you would like to, is questionnaires. You can find these all over the internet. I think I found most of the ones that I've used on Tumblr, but basically it's just a ton of questions about your character, you know, all the basics, age, hair color, eye color, that sort of stuff, but then also some more interesting questions like what superpower would they have if they could pick any superpower, or what's their favorite movie and why? If they could only keep one of their current possessions, what would it be and why? Simple questions like this that really get you thinking about your character and the decisions that they make and why they make them. So by the end of this process, I have all of my characters developed. Well, maybe not all of them. Obviously, you might be writing and you figure out later, oh, a random side character needs to pop up here, and they might not be that important. But at this point, I have all of the very important characters figured out and pretty well fleshed out. I have some backstories for all of them. I know the type of problems that they've had in their lives and how it's affected where they are today. And I know some little facts and quirks about them that are going to help me flesh them out into a more realistic person. And at this point, I'm ready to move on to step 3, which is plotting. So we will talk about that in the next video. For now, those are all my tips about how to develop your characters for your Wattpad story. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know any tips and tricks that you have when it comes to developing characters, and I hope that I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.